Hello everyone, and welcome to the third of today's sessions. This is our panel discussion, and I've been very excited about hosting this, about the kind of topics that we want to cover, because I don't know whether you have noticed recently, there's been a few posts on LinkedIn, there's been a few articles where people, let's say in the technology and kind of venture capital part of this industry, have been posting slightly snarky things about the research industry, about the legacy, about the way in which it's going to be turned over by technology. And we thought, as a good riposte to that, we've actually got some fantastic tech innovators in our industry already. So let's have a discussion about how people have taken their existing research expertise, their relationships, their businesses, and either built technology or pivoted to technology or created products of value. So that's the topic for today. I would love to hear from people in the audience. If you could just maybe type a little intro, introduce yourself so that we know who's joining, what kind of background you've got. Are you running an agency yourself? Have you built some technology? Are you here to learn from the people who've done it? Because we have some great guests for our panel, and I'm delighted that you've got 5 people in 5 different time zones here today. So I will let people introduce themselves one by one to start with, just so you say, but I can tell you we are in different countries, different parts of the world. And let's start with Serene. You're in the time zone that's closest to where I am, and then we'll move. No, you're not. Sorry. Karen, let's start with you because you're furthest east. Let's start with you, and then we'll kind of move west, and I can keep track of who's talking to who. So in the meantime, for those of you in the audience, please do pop a little chat comment, just say hello, where you're from, what your role is in the industry, and then we know a little bit how to focus these questions. So Karen, over to you. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you very much, Mike. I'm in Sweden, actually. And I am the CEO of Demoscope. I've been working in this field for 30 years. I've been working in large companies like TNS at the time. I've been working at Synovate and Ipsos, but I've also started companies that has grown. And now I'm CEO of Demoscope, founded in 1989. So it was a very traditional research company, and I became the CEO 5 years ago. And we have had quite a transformation since then. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks very much. Right, Serene. Sorry, my geography is bad today, so over to you. Let's. Where are you joining from? What's your background?
No problem. Thanks. Yeah. So my name is Serene Fall from Senegal. Currently also based in Senegal. So I have a bit of experience, a bit around. So I've done like engineering from management consulting, and then ended up in research around 7-8 years ago now. Not as experienced as Karen, but still somewhere around there. And yeah, so co-founder of Luca, which is pretty much research tech startup based in Senegal, where we help pretty much bridge the gap between organizations and African consumers. So yeah, we are actually a spin-off of an design agency called UX Design, which started out back in 2016 as one of their products that they were trying to scale to help make market research a bit more accessible in Africa. So we started out doing a lot of more like typical surveys, offline, online, and recruitment for qualitative research, and now are scaling more products such as like our data hub and our AI moderated interviewer, just still in the same vision of making market research accessible to all. Thanks.
Thanks, Serene. Thank you. Right, let's go. Our 2 final panelists are based either side of the North American continent in different countries. So Travis, could you tell us about your background, please?
Thanks, Mike. Great to be here. So yeah, I'm Travis Santa. I'm the COO and Security Officer at Touchstone Research. I've been with Touchstone for around 15 years, where I lead operations and I oversee our security and data integrity initiatives. I also help drive our company-wide innovation efforts. Just a little background on Touchstone. We're a full-service market research firm. We provide quantitative and qualitative research services. We work across brands, tech, media and entertainment, CPG, etc. And we have a special expertise in youth and family research. And over the past few years, we've developed 2 pieces of tech related to content testing. One is a secure content testing system, which is a watermarking based solution, uses a visual watermark and a forensic invisible watermark. And we also recently launched Dial Tester, which is a moment-to-moment dial test tool that measures audience engagement with video and audio content. And those two, the SCT and the dial tester, they're integrated with one another. So clients can test using Dial Tester, but also have that level of security. So excited to be here and share how a research agency like Touchstone developed these tools.
Great, thanks, Travis. And last but not least, Tova.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Tova. I'm one of the co-founders at Fathom. We deliver sort of best-in-class thematic coding and open-ended analysis. My background is actually sort of this tech spun out of an agency, so a little different than some of the other folks here. We founded Avalanche Insights about 7 years ago and built that to be one of the leading public opinion research firms in North America, really focused in civic and politics, really complex topics. And we needed to be able to do thematic analysis at scale, really big samples with lots and lots of open ends, think like 10,000 respondents, half the instrument open end, and get to that level of nuance and detail that's necessary when you're working in really complex civic topics. Nothing at the time was able to do that. And so we started building it in-house for our own team. And so then we operated as a tech-enabled agency for a number of years. I'm happy to talk through some of the wonderful aspects of that and some of the challenging aspects of that as we get into that conversation, but then made the decision after about 2 years of operating as that tech-enabled agency to separate those two companies. We sold the agency. We spent about 6 months really doing sort of the market research, the product research to figure out what that core tech would need to be a product that was accessible for other researchers. And then we launched that as Fathom, I guess about 19 months ago now. So that's the journey that we've been on. Happy to share a bit of the learning.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Tova. So you have pivoted the entire business effectively. You started as an agency, you ran with parallel within a sort of agency built product, and then divested the agency, focused and built a product focused business.
Yeah.
So Serene, can you tell us a bit more about your story on the tech side of things? Because you had Ukes Design, more of a kind of like design product UX research agency, and then you built the Looker product. What led to that?
Yeah. So me and my two co-founders were working at Ukes Design at that point. And one of the things that we had realized was that operations was just a pain at every project. Like something as simple as just like recruiting 5 people would take so much time. People would have like so many issues because you don't really have a lot of ops experts per se. And especially what happens is when you're working in the African market, it's very fragmented, very diverse markets within. So you have like 15 to 54 different markets with each of their own realities. So as an agency, and what we have seen widespread is, it's very hard to have that internal capacity for yourself because you need to be kind of like in a vertical and horizontal way, very widespread, which is kind of hard to do on your own. So then that's when we figured out that there was a gap of, okay, we can maybe try to see how we can use tech to handle that issue, which at the beginning was an internal thing just for the agency. And then as we started working on it, we thought about the fact, okay, maybe this is something that other people are facing. It could be agencies, it could be companies. And that's when we kind of like started externalizing the service, still as more of like an agency building the tech. And then at some point is when we realize, okay, you can be an optimized agency to a certain extent, but at some point you have to kind of like make the full pivot. And so that's at that point is when we realized, okay, we need to have like a very specific team with a very different set of skill sets to kind of like be able to work on the tech and research aspect of it and see, okay, how can we now become a research ops tool to now help people just focus, narrow down the focus really to just that aspect of it, really like clutch out all the other aspects and try to be as efficient as possible. And that's kind of like the story of how Looker Research came up together. And then now we just realized, okay, started working on one specific product, which is just for the surveys, and then realized, okay, we can actually have a set of different products and become like this end-to-end toolkit to be able to handle your research operations across the continent.
Yeah, fascinating. You said something there which I think is an hour-long discussion in itself, which is 54 countries. I guess the kind of variety and the differences that you have to deal with is quite a layer of complexity there as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much like you realize that you can't have like you can have a one-stop shop framework of how to go about things, but then when you get into the deep of each country, you have to pretty much have to be flexible enough to adapt to all of them. And for that, you really need to really be just focused on handling that part of it to really actually be optimized and efficient to handle the different markets at the same time.
Yeah. So tell us the components of Looker, it's surveys, it's recruitment for participants, effectively, making that whole research ops layer much more straightforward. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially what we do is we combine the technology aspect with the human network. So the human network is our surveyors, it's our panel of respondents that allows us to be both offline and online. And then the tech aspect of it, how it helps us optimize internally. So you reduce the cost because now you don't have to be paying flight tickets to be able to go to places. You can actually handle everything remotely. And then now what we're doing is, now after we figured that part, which is kind of like the basics, is now the next level of it is, okay, how can we use now research to be able to optimize in terms of speed? So which is why now we're trying to work on the AI moderator to help people to be able to do qualitative research at a bigger scale, also at a lesser cost. And now how can we now fix also the problem of speed in terms of you getting the data, where getting data in Africa still takes a lot of time. It takes weeks to collect data. Now, how can we now develop instant market data so that people can have access to the data? So when a client now comes and be like, I need data yesterday, then the data is already here that they can use, to kind of be able to do research the proper way, which takes a lot of time. But now that we have pretty much the tech infrastructure and the research infrastructure to be able to do that, is now the next level that we're taking on the product side.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So Karen, can you tell us a bit about your journey? Obviously, you've got the a long established agency business. What led you to build the products that you've got right now?
Well, I was in pain. I really had pain in all my body. Now we were suffering with high staff turnover, and we also had a problem with our profitability. So there were two things that we had, very manual processes. So it came from within that we knew that we needed to do something. And when ChatGPT came, I mean, AI is not new for the business or for our industry. I've been working with that for ages, with machine learning and neuroscience and all this stuff. So it was very easy to start working with ChatGPT, and we started 2 years ago. And actually, we had a good help with you, Mike. I invited you to come on board, since we have a joint background. But we had a kickoff, and we said that we are going in 2 months. We're going to try what we can do, how we can use AI in different internal projects. And in October, we had what we called the graduation, and we invited our clients. And we came to the point where we realized that if we are going to use this, we need to have our own secure platform to protect the client data and the respondents' data, because as we all know in this webinar, that the large language models, they are open and we can't use them. So we created our own secure platform. We named it Stella Research Engine, and in that platform we chose to use an agnostic model where we have 7 different language models, and fast forward to where we are now. The platform has, as I said, it has a chat function. It has a function to do text analysis. And for us, it was Swedish is a very small language, and we couldn't use the products available at the time. So we created our own solution to work with big call for and create statistics out of that. Then we also created an agent that do text to voice and one that do voice to text. We have also an agent that helps us with doing research of all different kinds, and we have one agent that helps us with personas. And all this was created by ourselves for our own needs that we have. And today we can handle almost the double volume, because now we don't have any staff turnover anymore. We are a very profitable company, and we can handle double the amount of projects than we could before. And then we had clients that wanted to use this platform So now we have launched it as a SaaS platform. So we have several clients using the platform. So being, as I said in my introduction, I'm a very traditional researcher. I'm very interested in tech, but this transformation of the company has been quite something. And I didn't see when we started that we would create a SaaS platform launching on an international market. And I think that is one point that I would like to make, that even if you're a small company, we are a small domestic company, 25 consultants, and we come from a country like Sweden. I'm thinking what the interesting story that you have, Serene. You're also coming from a country where you not might think that you can start this kind of company, but now the market, I mean, everything is agnostic. It doesn't matter what language you speak anymore, because you can do the sky is the limit, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think I stop there, Mike.
That's great. Really, for having been involved in a little way right at the start a couple of years ago, it's actually amazing how far things have changed now, how quickly in the space of just 2 years. It's amazing, what you can build, what you can develop. We've just been posting some of the links actually to the companies represented here in the chat. So if you want to go and check them out, we don't have a product listing for Stella yet, but we do have Demoscope in the agency in the directory. You can go and see and learn more about Looker and Fathom and Touchstone and Demoscope there. Travis, just moving on to you. So you talked a little bit about kind of media testing tools. Can you tell us, what triggered the development of that? Who's using those tools now, and what's been your experience of building technology?
Yeah, so the need to develop those tools came out of with SCT came out of client demand. Like I mentioned, we work a lot with media and entertainment clients. They want to test, their content at scale. A lot of times it's pre-release content. So obviously there's security concerns that, come about with testing that type of thing at scale. So we developed this SCT, system to handle that. So again, it utilizes a burned in visual watermark that's overlaid onto the content, and then it utilizes an invisible forensic watermark that you can't see, and it all traces back to the participant. So that gives our clients the level of reassurance they need to test their content. With Dial Tester, we really didn't see a tool that met all of our needs, particularly when it came to using those types of tools with youth, with kids. There wasn't a tool that was easy to use, intuitive. So we decided to build one from the ground up. We're a small team, but cross-team collaboration is key at the company. So we pulled in researchers from our quant and our qual teams, and they helped develop this, the tool. They also ran all the usability testing, that we did with the tool with kids and with parents. So that was key, to getting a really finished, polished, product. But also it's highly customizable. So, we can adjust it however we need to for different audiences, for different clients, and then bringing the two together into one cohesive, tool for our clients who, want the Dial Tester capability, and at the same time, want that level of security. So, we have a lot of media and entertainment clients using it. We have a lot of research agencies whose end clients are media and entertainment. So I have a lot of different use cases. So that's the story there.
That's interesting. So you're using it with your own teams as part of projects where they might be full service research, but you're also making it available to other agencies who are then, reselling or using it as part of their toolkit when they're starting media businesses.
So really, it's an extension of the services. We are first and foremost a services provider. These tools are an extension of the services that we provide. Dial Tester, we do provide it, offer that as a DIY solution.
Yeah.
So that is another offering.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. And then Tova, you started telling us a little bit about the kind of inception for Fathom and where you are. Can you tell us a little bit more about the product and who you sell to, who you work with now that you're Fathom?
Yeah, absolutely. So Fathom is a thematic coding and open-ended analysis platform. We sort of differentiate those two things because they're both important and one layers on top of the other. So we handle thematic coding from 193 languages now. And what makes us a little different is really around the level of nuance, detail, and accuracy. A lot of the sort of automated solutions that exist are fine in those situations where you need kind of a good enough quick look. But not when you need to get into sort of really detailed analysis to be able to find those messaging pathways that are going to break through, to find the insights you didn't know to look for, to be able to do comparative analysis between segments with statistical confidence, to be able to build personas, to be able to do regression analysis, all of the things that you think of as sort of quant, but with your open-ended data, and to be able to integrate those two things, to be able to work with mixed methodology instruments, a lot of quant, a lot of qual in one place, and be able to do that analysis. And that's really where we focus. A lot of our clients then will build on top of that. So it's fun. We're sort of talking about, we were an agency, we built tech, we sort of rolled that out as a self-serve platform. And now a lot of our clients do things like combine that with telemetric data and their own models and personas and build on top of that, right? So it all becomes this whole beautiful workflow that is really, and I think this comes to both Travis and to Corinne's point, really built by researchers for researchers, which is quite different than some of what you were talking about at the very beginning, Mike, when folks sort of parachute in and are like, I can create a solution with cool tech that'll work with the research industry. No, because I think everybody here, including us, started from a real user need within the research industry. We've built product that meets the needs of researchers and that integrates really seamlessly and beautifully into a research workflow. And so I think that's sort of one of our key takeaways across the board here, and certainly something that's important to us at Fathom.
Yeah, no, that's it is. For me, I do find it kind of riles me a little bit when I see some of these, let's say archetypal, San Francisco bubble perspectives around, what this industry is just a whatever $140 billion market that's ripe for hoovering up into somebody's new app. It's not quite as straightforward as that. But thanks, 193 languages, amazing. I saw a post the other day actually comparing the performance if you put things through some of the standard models and then you ask them to back translate and the inconsistencies between them. So I guess there must be a lot of power and appetite in something that's very focused. Do you see that as some of the core benefits that clients say, okay, there's a generic solution that obviously it does languages, but actually this is really built specifically, with all the nuance? Is that where a lot of the value lies, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, the things that we hear from our clients really have to do with the nuance and detail, with being able to control, if obviously right now, and this wasn't the case when we started, but right now you can throw some open-ended text at anything like a ChatGPT and it'll give you a summary of some of what's there. And that might be a fine starting point if you don't need to be confident that it's true, if it's okay if there's some errors in there, and if you don't need to be able to control that code frame to make sure that it really aligns with the level of nuance, with the context, with the research questions that you're bringing in. What you can do with Fathom is control all of that and then move it over to respondent level tagging, verbatim coding with all of the multi-tagging. So you get the level of coverage that you need and you get the level of control you need, but you get all of the efficiency and time savings of leveraging an AI solution. And that's, because of the human in the loop. I see you, Karine, I'll hand it over to you. Because of the human in the loop component, which is really core. I mean, we're an AI forward company. We are, an AI solution, but also always human in the loop, from, your research goals going in to the control that you have to the analysis, which is AI supported, but always human controlled. Did you want to add to that, Corinne?
Yeah, I think you are touching on a very, very good point where I think that we as traditional agencies and where we come from, something that we can contribute with, that the companies, the tech companies that hasn't got our background, is we know sampling. We don't need to analyze all the data around, and that comes down to things like sustainability and also, how many tokens do you use? It's a matter of, using that background that we have, and it finds a new value in this AI world. So sampling is one thing. The other thing which you were talking about was the quality control of data that we know what we are looking for. And I think that is a very important point that we should make as an industry. And the third one is our knowledge about statistical analysis, how to analyze data. These 3 points is something that it's solid it's solid in our bodies.
Yeah.
And we can use that going forward, and also to position ourselves against the tech companies just coming in saying it's easy. Because I attend so many webinars where I understand that they don't know really what they are talking about. It's glossy, it's shiny, it seems very good, but what's really underneath, they don't know when I talk to them.
Yeah, I was thinking actually when Tova was talking about language coverage, that was one of your original frustrations and triggers as well, wasn't it? The sort of limited performance with Swedish data was one of the frustrations.
We couldn't find anything.
Yeah. Can you talk, Karen, now that while we're on you, can you talk a little bit about your learnings about the similarities and differences between how you lead and the business model and the team responses and all of that, between more of the technology side of things and the professional services side of things?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Mike. And I didn't think so much when we started. It was more like a pain point. I mean, I had problems. I had problems in my organization, and using AI and generative AI is just the tip of the iceberg. What's underneath? It all comes down to organization, if you get it to work. And I'm thinking, I remember when we had our kickoff, we had someone saying that with this new world, you can be a small company in any country creating great stuff. And I thought, I didn't really understand it at the time, but I don't know how much this is going to grow. But what happened with our organization, we started off having an AI policy in place. We set the frames. You can do this. You have to be aware of the security of the large language models. You have to know GDPR, which is very, it's a foundation here in Europe. And you have to always honor the SMR rules. So we had certain rules that we had to that we had to follow. And at the same time, I said, if you're working here at Demoscope, you have to be open-minded with critical eyes. So you have to. I expect that you explore and you try new ways of working. And that's easier said than done, right? Because of course, I have people that are innovators. I have people who they think this is just a bubble. This is not for me. I don't want to work with this. And then I have also people that are realists. And we, being a small team, it was an advantage because we are working in we have two roles really with us. We have consultants and we have analysts, and you can take on different roles in different projects. So if someone is using one of the agents that we have developed, the other ones who are more hesitant, they will see the benefit of it, and they will also criticize it. So the ones who think it's fantastic, the team improved the agents going forward, and that has helped us. So the whole Demoscope team has been innovators. They have been a research and development team working together. So I've had all kinds of people working together, and that has helped us going so fast forward. I think it has been a benefit for us. I think I stopped there. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Joanna, thanks for your contribution. So Joanna chipped in to say, that's exactly what a lot of her clients, Joanna helps with talent with research tech firms. She's saying, agency researchers who understand classic research, but also want to work with, with platforms with sort of tech-led and tech-forward, that it's a kind of that middle, the overlap in the Venn diagram is where the sweet spot is for skills that people are looking for. Serene, can you talk a little bit about your learnings around, the similarities, differences, I guess, the Being a more of a product UX research business, I get quite a lot of tech overlap anyway, I imagine. But you tell me your story.
Yeah, I think for me it's a story of tension, I'd say. So like it's a big tension which is quite underrated, but actually impacts a lot of how things go. So essentially, when we had started out, we were like, okay, we're a tech company, but in reality, it wasn't a tech company. It was a tech-enabled company, which was doing an agency work with just the help of tech to optimize things. And at some point you realize there's like a limit of like how much you can scale. Like the true story is we went to a point where we burnt out and we had to take a 1 month break because we were taking on a big amount of projects but still doing the agency things. And then we're like, okay, we can scale this, and we realized, okay, you cannot scale this. So it's really a big mindset shift, which is kind of, I think, one of the advantages, because like Corinne was saying, like you really understand as a reacher what the work is to do. But then also, if you're going to really try to build a product, you really have to understand, okay, we want to bring this to a certain scale. So you have to be able, okay, how can I streamline these operations to the point where we can go from like 10 to 1,000? But also at the same time, how far can you go without really breaking the authenticity of trying to do research? Which for us was like the biggest battle, I think, around like for like 2-3 years when we were building out stuff. So essentially, what we were trying to fight against was the fact of like copy pasting the same model. Okay, we're gonna build an app, we're gonna get 1 million users, they're gonna be answering surveys, doing all of that, and we're gonna get the real insights. Which in reality, if you take the African market, people are still offline mostly. The average African consumer is not always found online. So for us, it was like, okay, we need to be able to scale still while being able to get the average consumer, which I think the good progression for us was like going from tech enabled to now like being very much more product led. But I think the biggest difference for us is like at some point we had to, and which is kind of like because of other different circumstances, but had to decide, okay, we're going to work towards being a product led company, which means that we're going to have to narrow down like 80% of the work that we used to do. We went from doing desk research, doing like big reports, doing all of like the service things. And at some point we're like, hey, we're going to focus on operations. Operations is going to be our niche. And we're just going to work on that and make sure that we can productize all the different components of it over time as we learn with the different markets. And so for us, it was really like that tension that happened for a long time where we're like battling between, okay, now we still have to do the things the right way, but we also do want to become tech people. So like even like from like personnel to leadership of how like you really decide to how you want to go about things to even how you think about developing the solutions was, I think, one of like the biggest things that was important in our journey, and is where you have like that really tension between like going from like agency to like product. Yeah. And I think Tova kind of like I had also some of the similar experience. So yeah, but I think it's good because it keeps you to the point where you're not just going to build a product just to build a product, which is what outsiders usually do. They're like, okay, I can just optimize this thing to the fullest. Where no, yes, you still try to keep the certain authenticity of research, which what makes research. But then but it's really like this really big battle that you go on throughout the whole journey. And then but once you get to that point of clarity, then I think then you really have something good with it.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, that tension between, you want some of the historical skill set and attitude in the research in order to inform the product, but you don't want too much of it because it dilutes your ability to be a product business. At the same time, it's a differentiator for companies coming from outside against the entrance. Travis, what have you found? The sort of do you find that this tension exists? You've got kind of technology, you're building products within the agency, or do you find you found a kind of happy balance?
Yeah, I think for us, again, because we are a services first, provider, it was pretty integrated, and also due to the fact that we were, our research team was leading the development, of these tools. Touchstone is always, our tagline is innovation and excellence. We were founded in 91, and one of the first to do go from mall intercepts to doing online surveys and online panels. So we've always been tech focused, but always a services provider. It just so happens in the past few years we saw a need to build our own solutions because the solutions we were looking at weren't fitting the bill. But again, I think the key with not having attention is due to the fact that the researchers were directly involved, and they continue to be involved. I mean, we're continuously evolving and improving our tools. Our researchers are the ones using the tools in the field. They see improvements or they get client feedback. They bring that back to leadership. We discuss a plan to improve the tool. We bring that to the developers. That gets tested. So it's kind of like this evolving, continuous feedback loop between the researchers and leadership and the developers. I would say the one difference would be the ongoing like infrastructure and maintenance that you have with tools, something that we're not used to dealing with the services side of things. But in terms of like the ongoing maintenance, security updates, scalability, planning and those types of things. But we've integrated all of that into our business operations, and security and data privacy is key. Karine mentioned GDPR. We do global research. We also work with youth, so you're dealing with COPPA, and you're dealing with all the U.S. state regulations. So it's key that these platforms meet our security requirements, our clients' security requirements. So we've incorporated. We are SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, and we've brought these tools within the umbrella of that compliance. So figuring all of that out was something new to us that we needed to figure out.
Yeah, you touched on something there, I think, which is one of the big differences is that the sort of the shape of the capital allocation through between a tech business, obviously very much up front. You're able to fund from operations much more easily. If you're running an agency services business, you sell something, you have the resources to do it. It's a slightly different thing. I mean, once you've built it, obviously that maintenance, ongoing investment in keeping the product up to date and keeping it there. But that's a kind of big difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can see a bunch of people in the audience who are leading their own agencies. You have a load of things. Please do start to post questions. We've got about 15 minutes left here for conversation. Oh, no, it's 20 minutes or so. But do please ask questions to our panel of experts, because I'm sure there's a load of things you'd like to ask them. But Tova, can you talk to us about some of the big, I guess, lessons that you've learned? What are, some of the challenges you had to overcome, and, some of the lessons you might want to share?
Yeah, for sure. I think actually probably the biggest one is something that Travis just spoke to, is that this is super, super, super fabulous and awesome and excellent and is wonderful for you as long as you know what you are. If you try to be two things at the same time, you will break. And that, I think, was one of our big lessons. The tech-enabled agency, when we knew we were building an agency and we were building that technology for similar to what Corinne was just talking about, for our strategists and our analysts to be using that technology, that's a certain business model, and everything is in service of that business model. And it also means that your ICP, your user, is really, really clear. Your internal analysts, your internal strategists are your user. Their feedback drives your product roadmap. That's really, really clear. As soon as you start to offer the same technology, whether it looks the same or whether it's packaged differently as a platform or something else, to external users, you've now got two different business models with two different user types, or potentially 72 different user types, depending on how focused you've been in your go-to-market with your new technology. And suddenly conversations about what's driving our product roadmap. Which features should we prioritize? The ones that are going to make our analysts' lives easier and faster, or the ones that our external users are like really, really calling for, even if our internal users don't want them? Now you've started to create tension. And so in answer to your question, Mike, like what's the sort of the biggest learning, the biggest takeaway is actually coming right back to what Travis just said, of being really, really clear on what your business model is, what your goal is, where you're going. And all of that drives your ICP, your product roadmap, your funding, your pricing. When you start to create two things under one umbrella, especially if you're a relatively small team, I think we've all seen examples of big companies that can have, a 6-person product team that's building the new thing. But if you're like, I think we were at the time 35 people when we started to like really build product, and then you split it into two companies, you may end up with some challenges. So I think that was lesson number one, is just be really, really clear on what the goal is, and then ensure that you are aligning all of the strategic decisions with that goal. And there isn't only one good way of doing it. Like, I was so happy with what we had as an agency. I was so happy with what we had as a tech-enabled agency. We were all miserable when we tried to be two things. And now I'm very happy with what we are as a SaaS platform. There's lots of good options, but the pain comes when you don't know which one you are.
Fascinating. So it is about get that clarity, as to the business model focus, team alignment, make sure that you're very clear about what the kind of core essence of the business is, because they are kind of quite different, aren't they?
Very different businesses. And I think you just mentioned funding. Like, it's not just your pricing strategy. It's also, for example, if you decide you want to raise a little bit of capital and you have an agency, suddenly the thing that has been driving most of your profit is now the thing that is your dead weight from your venture capital point of view. And like, how do you reconcile that internally from a culture point of view? That feels no good to anybody. From a decision-making point of view, it's just really, really challenging. So I think just aligning that is really important.
Yeah, that's great. Karen, you talked a bit about, the kind of two tribes in Demoscope, maybe the enthusiasts and the skeptics. Is that a sort of, did you find that you had the sort of similar tension to resolve there?
Well, I must say, Tova, it was really interesting listening to you. I think I'm experiencing the same very much. And I mean, Mike, I think it is an advantage to let all these people still be who they are and contribute. We have had, we still have, on every Friday at Friday afternoon, we have a Stella workshop where everyone comes to this workshop, and you understand it's late in the afternoon. Everyone want to go to an after work or something, or just enjoy the holiday coming up, or the weekend coming up, I should say. Anyway, but people, they really attend this Stella workshop on every Friday afternoon. And I think that says something about how important it is. And also because I also want to say, it's a lot of fun doing this. If you can create a structure and a culture in the company where you're allowed to be innovative, you're allowed to criticize, you're allowed to just to try it out, and you are allowed to fail, then eventually you also start having fun. You see, you create a secure environment where it's okay to just try it out. So my point I want to make is this is a lot of fun. You can do all different kind of things that you didn't think was possible before. And I mean, as I said, like the functions we have in Stella. One day I came in after New Year, and I had a small robot on my desktop, and I could speak French and Arabic to it, and get dinner menus or suggestions where I should go on holiday. I never saw that coming when I stood on my balcony a few days before on New Year's Eve toasting, that I would have a robot on my table talking all these different languages. And I mean, that's just someone having fun at the office. Yeah. So that is something that I want to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And the culture side of things, Toby, you posted, absolutely. This feels like the crux of a lot of things. Actually, whether you're a business that's implementing somebody else's technology, let alone building it yourself, it feels like it all comes down to the people and the process side of things, much more than the actual feature set in the apps. Yeah. So great. Sean, you have asked a question which we're planning to wrap up with, so I'm going to hold this back until the end, but just to make sure that our panel is all ready for it. Sean's probably expressed it better than I would. He said, what's the biggest mistake you've made along the way as a research agency building your own tech? And more upbeat question, what's the best single piece of advice you had along the way? So let's come back to that at the end, because I think that would be a great point to which to wrap things up. But we're just going around the table again here. So Serene, maybe can you talk to us a little bit about some of the lessons that that you feel you've learned in going through this process?
Yeah, I think in terms of lessons, first one, I think working in the emerging market, one thing that we've learned is that one, you need to be patient when you're building tech. Because as opposed to a developed market where you kind of can get a sense of like where the gaps are and try to fill it in directly, for us, it's really like a learning process. Like it's a lot of testing, it's a lot of failing, and it's a lot of having fun. Like Karin said, like we have at the beginning, I think we were too focused on like finding the right solution right away, and then we realized that don't try to put too much resources at the beginning. Like test it out, see how the market receives it, see how users are giving you feedback, and then from then build progressively the technology that once you have a better idea of the market, then you can really get to it. So for us, it was like, okay, you have to make sure that you really just, you take the researcher's approach, which is great when you're doing research projects. It's a lot more difficult when you're actually trying to build your own product because, you're very impatient of like trying to like, ship out features as quickly as possible. And then I think the other thing which was very important in terms of lessons was just a different way of how you think of research when it comes to building a product. Like when you're used to doing a lot of like research projects and just like doing like the traditional methods, when you really think of like, okay, how can we make this as a product? It really requires a different set of like thinking of how to go about it. There's, okay, this is how we normally do it, but now how can we make it more where you can streamline it where other people can use it at the same time? And it requires like switching between the brains of, okay, this is what I know from the research aspect. Now when you look at the tech aspect, there's like a limitation to it. Of course, you can't do everything that you want to do, so you really have to learn like, okay, what do I prioritize out of all of these beautiful things that we love doing? What are like the most important things I need to take out of it, and also what is feasible within what I want to do? I would love to create beautiful products that do everything, but at the end of the day, you have to know how to prioritize. Okay, this is the most important part of the quant research that we really want to extract from it and then build a product around it, and not just necessarily, okay, I just want to do everything, it's so cool, let's just make a product out of everything. And then once you launch it, you realize that people don't really want to use it because it's either too complex, because you've gotten too much into your researcher's brain. But yeah. So that's like for us, like the most important lessons.
Saying no, yeah, saying the stuff that you decide not to do sounds like an important decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Travis, what about you? I know I'm conscious of time, but what would you say are some of the lessons you picked up along the way? And I know I know your CEO's in the audience, so you probably have to be a little bit.
You get it. No, I would say just for a company that just the first time we developed a tech solution, just like the sheer amount of work that goes into that, and I think just having a well thought out timeline for development and testing and implementation with different milestones, and having some buffer time built in there for these different milestones is definitely something learning from there, because it could having some additional buffer time can definitely alleviate some stress during the process there. But like on the theme that we're talking about, definitely having your researchers involved from day one and having them involved in the entire process, from design to development to testing to implementation, having them involved, and then not treating like the go-to-market strategy as an afterthought. Having a plan in place for that. You put in all this work to develop this tool, and you want to make sure that it gets to the right audience, and and it gets the visibility that it deserves. So yeah, those are some learnings that we had.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. That makes sense. Well, look, we are just about 10 minutes away from the maximum time we've got, because we do have a session right after this. I can see a few people still here in the audience. If you want to ask a quick question to any of our experts, now is the time to do it before we move on to Sean's question. Well, it's a two-part question, really, and I think it's a slightly sort of better frame than the question that I was going to ask to wrap everything up. So let's just see if we've got anyone. Okay, so oh, sorry, that's Karen. You're saying you've got a robot for Aaron. That's nice. So there we go. Well, good. Well, let's start with these then. So hopefully you've had time to come up with a couple of answers to this. So Tova, let's start with you. Biggest mistake that you feel you've made, and then the best piece of advice that you've had that you'd want to pass on.
Yeah, I continue to make mistakes every single day. And so there are lots of big mistakes. But I think in talking about maybe something that's a little different than what we've talked about before, because first of all, just like really, really agreeing with both what Travis and Serene have said around focus, know who it is that you're building for, why what they're going to pay for it and how they're going to find out, which is your GTM. Like, know that and be focused on that. Absolutely. Outside of that, I think we've talked about this tension between when you're building technology and when you are building, operating as an agency. And I think the thing that probably caused for us, there's all sorts of tactical errors, but the thing that probably caused the most like heartache for people, the cultural element, was when it felt like those two things were oppositional to one another, when we didn't necessarily have the hard conversations to say like, yeah, we're going to take money that is being earned, revenue being earned from the agency, and we are not going to invest in another 2 strategists and another 2 analysts, even though we could scale that. We're going to take that and invest in the technology, and really take the time to talk about like why and how is that going to benefit us and where are we going. Not slowing down enough to have those conversations when things are moving fast and when things are exciting for some people means other people feel scared and not valued and hurt. So those are probably the things, like when I slow down, there's lots of lessons learned, lots of places that I make mistakes, but those are the ones where I'm like, oh, I knew better and I could have done better and I hurt people along the way. And so those are the places where when I sort of, close my eyes at night, I think I could have done that differently and I would again in the future.
Yeah.
The next one, I think that was sort of the flip side, was what did you do?
The best piece of advice you've had that you might want to pass on to others?
Well, I mean, I guess it's probably talk to your team a lot, listen to your team, validate their concerns, and incorporate that. But from a really tactical point of view, I think the thing that we actually started at the beginning around focus. Who is it for? Why is it valuable to them? Are they going to pay, which is different in product than something else? And make sure that, to Serene's point, you are testing that with an MVP as soon as you possibly can. It's not like agency research where it needs to be perfect before it goes out the door. You are hooped if you take that approach. So get an MVP and validate that people not just want it, not just that they'll like it, but that they will also pay for it before you start to invest more in building that technology and scaling it.
Okay, great advice. Thank you very much. Now, Karen, what would you say is the biggest mistake? I mean, you've had a very sort of compressed journey, sort of 2 years from the standing start to where you are now. What's the biggest mistake you've made so far? And then what do you think is the best piece of advice you'd want to pass on?
The biggest mistake, I mean, I have also made tons of mistakes, and my team has made tons of mistakes. But I think one a bit on the more serious side that I think you should be aware of, that we have realized over time, and that is how the large language models, how they are working, how different they are, and how they perform. If you look at Anthropic and OpenAI, we could see, and in my team we presented a white paper at APOR now in May, where we could see that the large language models, that they were very liberal when they did the text analysis compared to the outcome when we did it ourselves manually. And that is an important learning. And we were discovering also ourselves, writing reports. We could see that they were the summaries that we got from the language models, that they were way too liberal, the conclusions, compared to what the actual result really said. And I think that the importance of having human in the loop, as we discussed during this seminar, is super important, that they really take it seriously. And we had another event where we had made a big project, 35,000 interviews, and we felt that something wasn't really right. And the problem we discovered, to make it simple, was this the problem with language models, how they work. And now when we are aware of this, then we can also handle it when we create the agents and creating the prompts. That could be, I mean, set aside all the other problems that you have when things break and you have service going down. I mean, all these kind of things. The outcome of the result, that is also something where we as researchers, that we really can contribute with, because it can be really dangerous if we talk about democracy and as an industry, if we are not aware of this. So I think that this is a risk, and something that is a bit broader than the question you asked, Mike.
No, but I think it's really valuable. I saw a post we talked about this the other day. I know someone who's building a synthetic data business. He's spun up 1,000 synthetic sample polling just using the core ChatGPT, just using the core OpenAI model, and asked it, the polling intention for the last US election. 90% were voting for Kamala Harris. And that's without, you need to make a lot of adjustment there. So absolutely understand the risks of bias and leaning in the models.
Yeah,
so, great. And the lesson you'd pass on?
I think, and this is this is very concrete and simple. I think because it wasn't my invention, where it was a team member, the stellar workshops that we have had, no matter if you're a research company or if you're an agency or you are using it, using AI tools, I think it's to have a workshop where you can come with all your stupid questions or your ideas, and having this every week where everyone is contributing. You're not listening. You are there to contribute. I think it has been very valuable, simple, doesn't cost very much.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Now, Serene, what do you say? What do you say is the biggest mistake and the best lesson learned?
I'll try to be quick. So in terms of the biggest mistake, is there's something that costs more than building product is trying to unbuild the product and then building it again. So don't assume you know researchers and how they act. You actually have to do the actual research work, even if you're building products for researchers.
Yeah.
I think that's for us. And then the biggest learning, which I got from a non-research person that actually changed the way we thought about things, is that stop being a purist. At the end of the day, people still want to make money. And for us, it was pretty much, how do you sell research as a product, and how do you, from a general scheme of things, sell research more as an infrastructure more than a service? Because, and I think we've seen it as the years gone by, at least on our ends, that research budgets have gone down quite significantly across different countries, especially when you're in times of economic crisis. And at that point, people need to understand how research is actually going to help them and really be part of their internal processes. And it's at that point where you will be able to sell it to people who are non-research people, but also research people at the same time. So, yeah,
that's a great piece of advice that I think extends beyond just research and technology. I think a lot of people in the research industry should have that that lesson that stop being such a purist and appreciate people who want to make money. So great tip. Now, Travis, let's wrap things up. Tell us your the mistake that you're willing to share, and then the best lesson you've learned.
All right. Yeah, I'll also keep it quick. So I think most of us in this industry are perfectionists. So and I think we touched upon this a little bit, but trying to make a product perfect or customize it for every single use case or every single client, all that's going to do is delay timelines and have you not have a finished product at the end of the day. So having clear goals and general guidelines and that sort of thing, but not being so stringent and such a perfectionist that something never gets developed. So keeping that in mind. And then just in line with what Karine was saying, just having like workshops, like we have that as well at Touchstone, having clear lines of communication, having open policy in terms of getting feedback from your researchers and your team, not having closed off silos between your development team and your research team. I think that's all key. It comes down to communication.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we are just about out of time, and I want to say thank you very much. I could keep going for the next hour, but we have another session that we need to fire up. This was great. Thank you very, very much for sharing all your perspectives, your experiences, your expertise. And there's one thing that I think is exemplified by this panel that's not necessarily anything that any of us have touched on, but the fact that the breadth and the richness of the ecosystem in the industry is an incredible part of its resilience, I think. So what we've got here is, we've got media applications, we've got language analytics, we've got kind of, quant platforms, we've got, UX focus, we've got stuff focused in different geographies, all of which, is just sort of one, different fragments of our industry. So thank you very much for bringing all of that diverse experience to this panel. Thank you to everyone who has shown up. I hope that your colleagues will find this useful when they watch the replay. We'll certainly be posting it and promoting it so people can watch the video, because there's some really important concepts here actually about how, as an industry, we can certainly have the confidence to develop and go down these journeys of learning and building great products natively, rather than having them imposed on us by people who don't understand the context. But Karen, Tova, Serene, Travis, and everyone who's here with us, thank you very much. I hope you'll be with us in about 30 seconds time when we kick off our next session, which is wrapping up for the event with our 5 back-to-back lightning demos of Insight Community Solutions. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks much.
Bye.